Good morning, everyone. My name is Christy McKenzie. I'm an Assistant Coordinator of Neighborhood Services with the Department of Senior Services of Erie County. Welcome to our last presentation of our 2021 Virtual Elder Law Day Summer Series. We hope you have enjoyed all the series so far. I would like to take a minute, as always, to thank those individuals who have helped make this series possible again this year. Our County Executive, Mark Polenkars, Karen Nicholson, the CEO for the Center for Elder Law and Justice, and our Senior Services Commissioner, David Shank. This program will be recorded and will be available on YouTube at a later date. We are answering questions at the end of the presentation today. If you have any questions, we ask that you type them into the Q&A panel. Please refrain from including any personal information in those questions. Allow me to introduce our guest speakers. Katelyn Gindele is a staff attorney at the Center for Elder Law and Justice and the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit. Katelyn represents survivors of elder abuse with many different victimization types, including physical, financial, and emotional abuse. Katelyn represents elder abuse survivors in family courts, justice courts, Supreme Court, and city courts. We also have Tracey. She is a staff paralegal at the Center for Elder Law and Justice and the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit. Tracey is on the front lines of handling the incoming calls regarding possible elder abuse. Tracey is trained in trauma-informed care and has worked in social services programs for many years advocating for clients. Welcome, ladies. Tracey, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I am Tracey. Thank you for joining us this morning to discuss elder abuse detection and prevention. I know it's a very heavy topic, but I think it's very important that we talk about this, and hopefully the information we share today can help people you serve or even people you know. Make sure I can share this. All right, first things first, what is elder abuse? Elder abuse takes many forms and is not always immediately apparent to those who are seeing it. Sometimes elder abuse can be very blatant and big in your face. Sometimes very subtle too. There are many forms of elder abuse. Financial abuse, also known as financial exploitation, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Katie will discuss the details of these forms of abuse and go into the signs to look for when checking for elder abuse. I want to discuss the dynamics at play with elder abuse, though. So when an older adult is dealing with elder abuse, there's an abuse of trust happening here. Someone they know, whether it be a family member or someone in the community that they trust, is now betraying that trust and violating them in many different ways, possibly. When an abuser has access to someone and can rely on them trusting them, they can become manipulative and gain power and control over that individual's lives. Why elder abuse takes place, there's no clear-cut answer for that. There's many reasons and factors at play sometimes, depending on every case, every situation. But some dynamics at play can be family dynamics. Some people have very long histories of hostility or toxic dynamics in their family that can play a part in what's happening with them now. Dependency. Some older adults are dependent on caregivers for support, and that caregiver may be overwhelmed or overloaded by what's happening and what they have to do for someone else. And when they experience burnout and stress, they may become a perpetrator of abuse to that older adult. Things like addiction with alcohol, drugs, or even gambling can be a factor in how elder abuse plays out for older adults as well. And ageism. So whether intentional or not, abuse may occur as a result of ignorance surrounding the aging process and the needs of elderly people. Some important statistics that you guys want to know is that New York is now the only state that does not have mandatory reporting by professionals for elder abuse in the community. It is estimated that 954,000 older adults are currently skipping meals as a result of financial abuse. Only 1 in 24 cases of abuse is ever reported. There are approximately 260,000 victims of elder abuse each year. Older adults lose $36.48 billion each year to elder financial abuse. 9 out of 10 perpetrators of abuse are family members. I want to be clear that anyone can experience and be a victim of elder abuse, but some risk factors that I want to highlight are the following. Memory loss. As we get older, we may not forget things that happened a couple of days ago, maybe a couple of hours ago. I myself do not know what I wore on Monday. It is now Wednesday. But memory loss can play a factor in someone being able to be manipulated and lied to. Financial status. If you are an older adult with means, You may not keep track of all your finances, whether it be your retirement funds or investment portfolios, and someone with access can manipulate those finances. Women are often victims of financial abuse, but so are men. Urban living areas can create an environment where older adults are dealing with a lot of people at once and can get lost in all of that contact. You receive a lot of calls every day from telemarketers. They're at the access point to get to an elder adult, and maybe they can be a victim of a scam. Friendliness, you know, if you're open to meeting new people, someone could be a bad actor and maybe taking advantage of you. Education levels play a part in elder abuse, and isolation is a big factor. If an older adult is isolated and does not have a lot of people checking in on them or concerned about their day-to-day activities, and someone catches onto that, we may not know what's going on with someone until it gets really bad, or even if it's too late. So those are all factors that play a part in elder abuse. Let's talk about ageism and elder abuse. What is ageism? Ageism is a set of beliefs relating to the aging process. A stereotype is a generalized belief about a particular group, in this case, older adults. Stereotypes are unchallenged myths associated with a group of people that are widespread and entrenched in verbal, written, or visual contexts in society. That means, you know, our TV, the shows we watch, the commercials we watch, the movies we watch, we're all seeing how older people are supposed to behave and act. These stereotypes of aging include assumptions and generalizations about how people of a certain age should behave and what they are likely to experience without any regard for their individual differences or their unique circumstances. Common stereotypes for older adults include they may have a trusting nature, they may be less technologically savvy, they may have significant financial assets, they may be more prone to isolation than younger adults, they may have lost a spouse or significant other, be experiencing grief, and may be vulnerable, they may be frail or in poor health. These are all stereotypes. Society as a whole tends to discount older adults, and abusers capitalize on this and will try to explain away possible signs and symptoms of elder abuse. We should not excuse abuse because of our own biases on aging. When it comes to our own biases, when it comes to aging, I encourage you all to reflect on the assumptions you make about older adults and try to challenge them and make an effort to not assume and ask questions and be mindful that older adults can be active in things that we may not often assume they are active in. And yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tracey. My name's Katie. I will talk about the different types of abuse that we see here at Center for Elder Law and Justice and in elder abuse in general. So there's physical abuse, and that is the use of force against a person that results in physical pain, injury, or impairment. Physical abuse can include inappropriate use of drugs, restraints, or confinement, something against someone's will. Any hitting, punching, slapping, choking, twisting and pulling limbs. And physical abuse can be something as simple as bumping someone or tripping them. Next slide, please. The signs of physical abuse are unexplained or suspicious injuries or pain, any cuts, puncture wounds, bruises, and burns, dehydration or malnutrition, poor color, sunken in eyes and cheeks, that's another sign of dehydration, frequent use of hospitals, they're called the frequent flyers, the people are in and out of the hospital. Also frequent change in doctors to try to not create a trail of paperwork. They're going to different doctors. Next slide, please. We also see emotional abuse, and that's probably the most common abuse that we see. Emotional abuse is speaking to or treating a person in a way that causes emotional pain or distress. Emotional abuse can be verbal, yelling, making threats, ridiculing someone. Nonverbal, ignoring someone, isolating a person, or it can be psychological, crazy-making behavior, gaslighting, saying, I never said that, when you know for certain someone did say something. Emotional abuse is interesting because it's not apparent like most physical abuse. That's something to keep in mind. And we also see romance scams. That is emotional abuse and financial exploitation tied together. Next slide, please. I'll talk a minute about romance scams because it's very popular, these scams. They're horrible. We see them a lot at Center for Elder Law and Justice. So the romance scams are when scammers, they pretend to have a feeling of love or friendship for the target. A lot of times the target will get a message on Facebook, just starting like light chatting. They may get an email or a phone call or text message from a stranger. The scammer, they talk to the target for quite some time, possibly without even asking for money at first. Eventually, the scammer has an emergency, which is not real, and they ask the target to send money in many forms, including gift cards. For example, they'll say, oh, my mom's in the hospital. Can you just send me $100? Maybe the quickest way is sending me a gift card, though. Regardless how much the money the target sends, it's never enough for the scammer. There's always going to be another emergency. There will always be a crisis that the target is the only one that can help. These are some of the hardest scams to get out of because the target is also it's often extremely emotionally invested in the relationship. You know, the target thinks it's a real relationship, and it's very easy to get caught in these. They're master manipulators, these scammers. Next slide, please, Tracey. The signs of emotional abuse: fear or hesitation to talk openly, anxiety, agitation, any isolation or withdrawal, change in normal activities, like if someone was normally at the senior center a lot and all of a sudden they're not there, what's going on here? They start doing something outside their normal character. Example, a frugal person spending excess money, that's a great sign of possible scamming going on. The older adult is non-responsive. They're confused or disoriented. Next slide, please. I also want to talk about sexual abuse. When we think of older adults, we tend not to think of them as sexual beings. However, anyone can be sexually abused and exploited. So we definitely need to consider this. Sexual abuse is sexual contact with a person without their consent. It includes physical sex acts, showing a person pornographic material, forcing the person to watch sex acts, forcing the person to undress, and also inappropriate touching during routine care, such as a caregiver doing this, a family member, a friend. There's something where someone's touched and it's definitely not appropriate and the person does not want it. Next slide, please. The signs of sexual abuse: difficulty walking or sitting, unexplained STDs or HIV status, bruise patterns on the outer arms, chest, inner thighs, hypervigilance. They're always on alert, watching their surroundings. They're shying away from being touched, and they generally would want to give hugs. When you go to hug the older adult, they're kind of cowering away. The older adult appears to be embarrassed or shameful for an unknown reason. Next slide. Also, neglect is a big one. Neglect is the failure to fulfill a caretaking obligation. It's the intentional withholding of basic necessities of life. That's the active neglect, where you're intentionally doing something. There's also passive neglect, and that's when the older adult is not provided the basic necessity of life because of a lack of experience, information, or ability, not because the caretaker doesn't want to be neglectful, so they don't understand how to properly care for somebody, which, it's a huge task. There's also individual neglect. The individual neglects to attend to their own basic needs, like showering, eating, etc. The next slide, please. The signs of neglect that we often see: the older adult will have no heat, water, electric in their home. Things have been shut off. The bills haven't been paid. Extreme filth and clutter, possibly hoarding. Strong odors, poor hygiene, soiled clothing. They're not washing their clothes. The older adult may not be taking showers regularly. There's no food in the fridge, or there's only spoiled food. Unsafe living space. You walk in, you're like, something does not seem right here. It doesn't seem like a normal house. It's dirty. It smells. There's not food to sustain a person here. Also, damaged assistive devices. So their wheelchair that they require to get around in is broken. Their walker is nowhere to be found. Next slide, please. Also, I want to talk about real fast is financial exploitation. This is another big thing here we see at the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit, and that is the unauthorized use of a person's funds or property. Financial exploitation is a big business, and it costs older adults over $36.5 billion a year. It's not highly reported. For every one case that goes reported, 43 go unreported. Next slide, please. Some signs of financial exploitation. You'll see significant withdrawals from bank accounts, sudden changes in financial condition. Somebody comes to the store and they normally have like a lot of bills in their wallet, like $50 bills. All of a sudden they're trying to count pennies just to pay for bread. Items or cash missing from the household. Suspicious changes in wills, powers of attorney, titles and policies. Unpaid bills or lack of medical care, although the elder does have enough money to pay for them typically. And unnecessary services, goods, and subscriptions. We'll chat more about the power of attorney too, just so you're aware. Okay. Next slide. Okay, Tracey?
As we said before, like elder abuse is not talked about a lot, not reported a lot, because there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of embarrassment. Abuse is a humiliating and dehumanizing experience. Many survivors of abuse blame themselves and do not want family or friends to know what has happened to them. And what we try to do with these conversations and presentations is to get the conversation started. People should not be suffering in silence and be in shame. They should be getting help and support. So again, if an older adult's only eating one meal a day, it's because they're too ashamed to say that they lost their money in a scam or they lost it to someone they trusted. And we need to lift that barrier of shame because people are suffering because of that shame. The next big barrier is they don't think it's that significant to report. People may not think it's a big deal, or they may have downplayed or minimized the abuse. Again, if you're coming from a toxic household or family dynamic, it may be normal to be shoved or like grabbed roughly. But if you're telling someone else, like a doctor or an attorney or a paralegal, that something happened to you, and we're cautious and concerned for you, you may realize that, okay, I may think it's normal, but it's not actually normal to be treated this way, and maybe you'll get help. Another big factor that is a barrier is the fear of the system. So some people don't know how to get help through legal services. Like, what is court going to be like? Will police come? Will I be removed from my home? Will I lose this? Will I lose that? The lack of information and knowledge is fearful, and they don't know how this process works. And it may or may not have a good relationship with the police, and that could be a factor as well. And so having conversations with clients about what to expect if they go to court, how to navigate with the police if they want to or not want to, is something we can talk about that with them, and to lessen that fear, because knowledge helps lessen the fear. Once you know more, you'll have more information. And then the last thing too is that sometimes victims of abuse do not want the offenders to get into any trouble with the law. So it may be someone that you trust and love who's been financially exploiting you, but you don't want them to be arrested or face any major conflicts because you love that person. And there are other ways to seek remedies for elder abuse that don't involve the law. We'll talk about them later on in the presentation. So the ties that bind us. Sometimes we don't report because we love the ones who hurt us. Sometimes the person who is causing the harm is a loved one. It may be a partner, a family member, or even a child. Parents, regardless of age, feel responsible for their adult children and believe they need to put their children's needs before their own. As we said before, 9 times out of 10, the perpetrator of abuse is a family member. So in the elder abuse unit, we deal a lot with older adults who are dealing with elder abuse from family members. So I think a term that we learned recently was there are difficult adult children, and the dynamics of those difficult adult children do play a part in how we examine elder abuse. And so when I say difficult adult children, I mean they can be defined as having a mental health issue. Maybe they are just diagnosed with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. They may be dealing with substance abuse issues, alcohol or drugs. They may be unemployed, have a history of being disrespectful or aggressive to others. They may not be succeeding in life. Maybe they can't keep a job or get an apartment. Maybe they have health problems that are chronic, and they need support. Maybe they have a bad relationship, they have a bad spouse or partner, and it's not going well, and their life is suffering because of it. Or maybe it's a temporary problem, like a lack of a job, or they're dealing with citizenship issues, and they just need help. When it comes to parents and children, they have linked lives, as we say. So if your child is going through a bad divorce or a breakup or suffering a job loss, as a parent, your instinct is to support them through that process. But at some point, that support becomes exploited and becomes a breeding ground for elder abuse, which happens a lot and is what we see often in this unit. I want to get into some case examples so we can contextualize what we're talking about. So this one is about Joe. Joe is 77 years old. He lives in a home he owns along with his daughter, Lisa, who's 46 years old, and his granddaughter, Opal. She's 12. While reviewing his bank statement that month, Joe realized that there are frequent ATM withdrawals that he does not recognize. He contacted the police, filed a report to his bank as well about the funds being withdrawn. After an investigation, the bank determines that only someone who knows Joe's PIN number would be able to make those ATM withdrawals. Joe has admitted he's given his daughter his ATM card in the past, but she denied taking any money. So our agency advised Joe to get a new debit card and not share his PIN with anyone, referred to senior financial safety tools. So the dynamics here is that Joe lives with his daughter, Lisa, he trusts her, but he knows that there's some ATM withdrawals going on. So we investigate, call the police, and the bank says, again, only someone with the ATM PIN number has access to your funds. I talked with Joe for a long time, and Joe was in denial. He didn't think Lisa would do that. He even asked her with me on the phone, and she said no. But there wasn't any other way that someone else could take that money. And so in an effort to protect Joe and financial resources, we said, how about we change the debit card, get a new card, get a new PIN number. This time you're not sharing with anybody. And advise him, if you want to give Lisa money, that's great. But, how about you go to the ATM yourself and give her the cash yourself? Or maybe you write her a check and write out what it's for, and you keep a paper trail of what you're giving to her. Because, again, we don't know the dynamics of the situation, but sometimes you're living with your parent, you may feel entitled that, hey, this is someone who is my parent. They wouldn't mind if I go to the ATM and take money out. But Joe and Lisa, they're all adults, and she should ask. She should be asking her father if she can take money out, and he should be aware of what's happening because, again, it's his funds. And if we take our bias into account, maybe Lisa is thinking that her father, older, doesn't need the money, she can use it for her daughter or whatever. It may not be with malice intent, but it's not appropriate to do that to anyone, no matter their age. And so these are conversations we have with clients all the time. And referring to the senior financial safety tool is basically educating older adults on how to navigate online banking, get alerts through their phone or email about when withdrawals are happening so he can be alert to it when it happens, and stop that, call the bank, close the card if it ever happens again. So with that education, he has more tools to help him in the future. But, him and Lisa are still living together. He still has relationships with his daughter, and, he was happy with that intervention and those resources that we gave him that time. There's another case example I want to get into. This is Lucinda. She's 72 years old and lives alone in her home that she's owned for 30 years. Lucinda's daughter, Mary, has fallen on hard times. She divorced her husband last year and recently lost her job as an ER nurse. Mary was facing an eviction, and Lucinda invited Mary and her two children, 10 years old and 5 years old, to move in temporarily to get back on her feet. It's been 10 months now, and Mary has not returned to work. Lucinda notices that her daughter is more depressed and is drinking more and more during the day. Mary hardly does any chores and is always asking to borrow money. Lucinda's credit card is now missing. So this is a situation where, an older adult who's a parent is talking about linked lives. Her daughter is in crisis. She's, going through a divorce. She's facing an eviction. Lucinda, as a mother, wants to help her child and her grandchildren and invites them to stay and move in with her temporarily to offer some support to help her get back on her feet. But things aren't going as planned. Mary is not getting a job. She's not helping around the house, and things are getting worse. There's more pressure on Lucinda to provide for the people in her home. The bills are going up because of people being in the house, food costs, electric costs, things like that. She's feeling a lot of stress due to it, and there's no relief in sight. So when she calls us, she's looking for help. She's not sure what she wants, right? So after some time, she decides, the best thing I can do for myself and even my daughter is to seek an eviction. So she gets our legal help to evict her daughter from the house. And it's not pleasant. She has a lot of guilt around that. She feels bad, but she knows her daughter is capable of getting another job and finding new housing. She isn't choosing to do that because Lucinda has, in fact, enabled her to stay here for so long. And so Lucinda gets her help to evict her daughter, and she eventually chooses to leave the house and get a new place. But Lucinda also wants to maintain a bond with her daughter. She wants them to be mother and daughter again. And so she asks for help, and we refer her to mediation services. So mediation is an alternative to court, and you can talk to a mediator who's a third party about your conflict and see what you can do to resolve it. And so they go to mediation as a family and talk about what's going on with them. And through mediation, Mary realizes that she's really depressed, and she's going through a lot from her divorce and the job loss, and she's seeking counseling for herself now and going to therapy because she knows that she's not in a good place either. So all this happened, and it was really hard, the eviction, but healing also happened too. The family came together and talked about what's going on in their lives interpersonally, and now Lucinda and her daughter and even her grandchildren can still have a family bond, but there is a barrier now, you know. Lucinda's at home by herself as she likes it, and Mary's in her own space and getting the help she needs to take care of herself and her children. All right, Katie.
Okay, so I just wanted to put up some tips to prevent financial exploitation. Monitor your bank account activity regularly. I would say, you know, if you have an app on your phone, just, you know, do it when you're going to scroll Facebook, you're going to look at your app on your phone, your bank app, make sure everything looks good. Otherwise, you know, if you go in the bank to review it or you review statements in the mail, like make sure you review the statements right when you get them, or go in the bank to review the statements with the teller. Only appoint a power of attorney if necessary, and make sure that you absolutely trust that person. Check your credit report often. There is a website that we refer clients to. It's annualcreditreport.com. You can access free copies of your credit report. Never share your PIN number. That's very important. Make sure you do not leave your purse and wallet not on your person when you're in public. So if you put your purse in your grocery cart and you look away for a second to look at some crackers or something, don't. Keep it on your shoulder, keep it tight, hold it straight. Hang up on telemarketers, always. And if something sounds if something sounds too good to be true, it's because it is. Next slide, please, Tracey. Never give your financial information to someone who contacts you and claims they need it. Never give your social security number, Medicare, or bank account number to anyone over the phone. Never provide callers with your computer login information. And never click on messages indicating that your computer is infected or call the number associated with the message. That's a big scam going around where you'll be on the computer and a pop-up will pop up saying your computer is infected with a virus. Please call this number to get the virus off your computer. That's a scam, and that scammer could take over your computer. Next slide, please, Tracey. So I'm going to talk about some legal remedies for elder abuse. These are remedies that we assist with here at CELJ in the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit. So we handle evictions, like Tracey was just mentioning. We do handle evictions when there is no lease agreement and no rent paid. A lot of times the evictions are a parent and a child. We handle orders of protection in family court. There's also orders of protection in criminal court, however, we do not handle criminal matters. We handle power of attorney accounting requests. When a actually, we'll go to the next slide. I think I have everything broken down. Sorry about that. Okay, I apologize. So like I said, evictions. The Elder Abuse Prevention Unit, we represent homeowners seeking evictions of adults, inhabitants whose license to reside in property was revoked. Every case is different. Call us for more information. We'll give our number at the end. Next slide. Okay, and then orders of protection, which I was mentioning. So we do represent older family members seeking orders of protection in family court. For orders of protection to be heard in family court, specific relationships between parties are prerequisites for family court matters. So it can't be a neighbor, it can't just be a friend, there has to be a specific relationship. Call us for more information on that if you're interested. And as I was saying, the power of attorney, accounting requests, and revocations. So power of attorney agents, they have a duty to maintain records of all the transactions they complete on the principal's behalf. The principal, who is the person that the agent is helping, they can request accounting records from agents at any time. We can help with that too. The agent must comply. Center for Elder Law and Justice can revoke power of attorneys when abuse is present. The agent does have a fiduciary duty to either act at the principal's best interest or at the principal's direction if they can give that. Next slide, please. We also represent identity theft victims. Identity theft victims may be sued on debts accrued due to the theft. CELJ represents identity theft victims in these situations. We advocate to the creditors on the debtor's behalf, stating they did not accrue this debt. The debt was accrued due to identity theft, and therefore the debt should be dismissed. If it does proceed to a court case, we will represent the debtor in court if necessary. Next slide, Tracey. So I'll just go over the non-legal remedies for elder abuse. There's mediation, counseling and therapy, support groups, and setting boundaries, and then we break it down the next slide. So mediation, as Tracey was mentioning, and the case example, mediation services can offer dispute resolution programs. The services are designed to be alternatives to formal court proceedings. It's a really good way to start a case if there's no, extreme abuse involved, to see if you can mend these relationships. Locally, we do have the Center for Resolution and Justice. It's a nonprofit free service. They have been around for more than 30 years. They've offered mediation programs. They offer trainings through several counties in Western New York. As I said, they're no cost. And they offer all sorts of options for mediations. That's a really good place to start in a lot of our cases. Next slide. We also refer a lot of clients to therapy, counseling, support groups. A big one we refer clients to is Save the Michaels. So Save the Michaels is a great organization. It helps parents and loved ones when they're dealing with children or other loved ones that have substance abuse issues. They provide education, self-help, and it's a really good resource. We see a lot of clients whose children have substance abuse issues, and that's why they are behaving the way they're behaving and causing the elder abuse. So Save the Michaels has been great. Crisis Services is another option. They operate a 24-hour helpline if you're in crisis or if you don't feel comfortable calling the police, so you just need someone to talk to. Crisis Services is a great resource. Next slide. Okay, do you want to talk about this one, Tracey?
This is about setting boundaries, right? So again, when someone calls and help, I don't know the whole family history, the dynamics at play, but it's often that the abuse didn't start today. It's been going on for some time, and there may be history behind it. And as Katie said, if we are dealing with adults with older adults with adult children who are in crisis, maybe they're have substance abuse issues or just dealing with unfortunate circumstances in their life, and they've been enabled by their parent for some time, it's going to take some changes to really stop the abuse. And so this acronym I find to be very helpful. It spells out sanity, and the S stands for stop enabling, stop blaming yourself, and stop the flow of money. So we need to change how we respond to adult children in crisis. You can't change them. You have to stop giving them money and encouraging negative behavior if possible. So it may be hard to do these things at first, but it takes practice to get better. And the A stands for Assemble Support Groups. So that is key to helping older adults break cycles of elder abuse when it comes to adult children. You need to have support, whether that be your friends or your family, or people in the community, whether it be a caseworker you go to, or someone, your faith group at church or at the synagogue or at the mosque, someone who can help you understand that. That's why Save the Michaels of the World is so important, because there are other parents who are dealing with the same kind of issues you are. You don't feel ashamed or embarrassed that you have this problem in your family, because they also are experiencing something similar to what you're experiencing. But having support is going to be essential, because it takes a lot of work to stay strong and resilient when you're saying no to a child who you love, who's in crisis and is hurting you and harming themselves at the same time. N stands for nip excuses in the bud. It is easy to let excuses coach you into doing things you would not typically do. Like I said in the beginning, there are adults who will forego food and eat one meal a day so they can make sure their child has the money they need. And no one thinks they're going to give their child money for drugs, but if their child is coming to them sick and shaking because they're not well and they're in withdrawal, they want that pain to stop. They want that to stop for their child, and they want to make them feel better, even at the detriment to themselves. And we have to support older adults taking care of themselves first. I stands for implement rules. This takes some time and takes some effort and teamwork, but older adults can make a plan and implement that plan and stick to it. They can meet with their adult child and share that plan with them. So if the plan is, hey, you've been living here for 10 months, this is not working out, this is a temporary situation, I need you to move out, can you be out in 2 months or the end of October? Have a plan in place, put that in writing, maybe have them sign it, and then explain that if you aren't gone by this set date, I will pursue legal action to formally evict you from this house, or I'm no longer going to give you money, and it'll start this date. And these are things you can do by setting expectations and explaining what you need from the other person, and then apply consequence to that behavior. But therefore, it's no surprises. Everyone knows what's expected of them, and they can act accordingly. T stands for trust your instincts. This is really important because I get people calling me and they tell me this what's going on in their life, but their person and how things are going so poorly. And I ask them, so what are your goals? What do you want to have us help you achieve? Can we help you? And they tell me, I don't know, and I tell them, you're calling me for a reason. You're calling me because you aren't feeling good. You're in crisis. This is a situation you're telling me about is not sustainable, and you need help to change that. And so I tell them, trust your instincts, and if your instincts are telling you that what's happening right now cannot be sustained and you're not in a good place, trust that instinct and do the hard work to change that situation, and know that I'm here to support you through that process. But trust yourself, because you wouldn't call if everything was okay, right? And then the last one is Y, which is yield control. So again, you have to understand that you can't control the matters happening in your child's life or the older adult's life. So whether it be a child or grandchild, you can't control what's going on with them, especially if they're abusing drugs or dealing with a mental health issue. Those are out of your control. And you have to understand that hoping to fix what's happening, the problems that are appearing in their life, isn't helping them. It's hindering their ability to learn and to grow. Loving them, supporting them, means letting them figure these things out on their own and not enabling them. So if they don't have a place to stay, if you are to evict them or let them leave, they have to figure out a plan. They won't ever choose or look for an apartment or find a new place if they never have to do that. So enabling them is only going to hurt them and not allow them the chance to grow and learn how to do things for themselves and on their own. And if they fail, there are supports for them, and it doesn't always have to be you as an older adult, okay? So that's the things I try to encourage clients to call our office seeking help, because, like I said, shame is a powerful, powerful thing, and they want to be good parents or good grandparents. But again, when abuse is happening, I tell them all the time that no one deserves to feel unsafe and without the basic necessities, food, shelter, safety. And if that is what's happening, we have to change the situation so you can be better. So yeah, that's a very big part of helping to end elder abuse and encourage and empower clients to meet them where they're at. Sometimes they may not be ready to get legal intervention, and we may have to close their case, but we leave the door open to our clients all the time and tell them you can come back when you're ready to pursue legal option. If not, there's mediation, there's other counseling and therapy, because there's a lot of work that needs to happen under the surface before we get to that other part, which is going to court and getting order of protection or getting an eviction. Here are some community numbers that you may need. We have Center for Elder Law and Justice, that's us. Adult Protective Services is through the Erie County. And again, if you suspect someone, an older adult, is being abused financially or any other way, and you want someone to investigate that matter, you can call and make a report. You can do that anonymously, or you can leave your name, and someone will follow up with that report. Erie County Senior Services, also known as Near Connect, is a good resource for older adults. It helps helps with care issues. So again, like I said before, sometimes elder abuse can be unintentional with older adults depending on a caregiver, and that caregiver becoming overwhelmed. that caregiver needs support, whether it be Meals on Wheels or home health aides or like come in 4 hours a day, things like that, your Connect will see what the older adult qualifies for in terms of health insurance and care and try to provide them with services that can help them, whether it be transportation or adult day programs, so that so much isn't on only one person to provide all the care for an older adult. There isn't that stress and that toxicity in that household anymore. Crisis Services Hotline, their number is here. Again, they offer 24/7. You can call them at any time, any hour of the day. And again, it's helpful to talk about issues that you don't want to involve the police in. There's Michael of the world. Again, if you are dealing with someone who is dealing with substance abuse issues and you don't know where to turn to and you need support, this is a great number to call. They have offices, I think, in Buffalo and in Lockport. And then Center for Resolution and Justice offers mediation services, and they're a great resource to start because, again, when you escalate to a legal intervention, it may make matters more tense. And so if you want to avoid that, if possible, this is a good way to start, as Katie said. But always, 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 if someone's in immediate danger or in an emergency and their safety is being threatened, please call 911 if you feel safe to do so. Call them and report that this person needs immediate assistance. This is a quote, I think. Katie, you want to say the quote?
Sure. I thought this was just a nice quote to put out. So the best classroom in the world is at the feet of an elderly person. I think, as Tracey talked about earlier, ageism, you know, we kind of discount older adults. They tend to just not be in part of like the current events. They're just discounted. But really, they offer so much to us. And, you know, it's a privilege to grow older, and we all need to respect older adults.
And with that, we will take your questions and comments if you have them for us.
Hey, ladies, there was a question about where they can access slides after the presentation. They will be available on erie.gov/ELD for Elder Law Day, in case you need access to those numbers at a later date. And then there's a question, if you suspect a romance scam going on with one of your parents, possibly them as a victim, do they have to agree to have intervention there or have help, or can you just call someone to help them and they may say no?
So to be a client at Center for Elder Law and Justice, generally the client has to want our legal assistance. I think if the person's saying that their parent may be a victim of a romance scam, it's so hard to get out of that. Like I said, I think the first step would possibly be a referral to Center for Resolution and Justice to try to have mediation services. So there's a third-party neutral mediator, and your parent and yourself, and just trying to come to some sort of agreement. I think that would probably be the first place to start. But to be a client at our office, they need to want our legal help.
Okay. I think that's the only question that I saw here. So again, thank you, ladies, for sharing all your knowledge and taking the time to present today. I hope everyone joining has learned a lot. There will be a brief survey at the end of this. Please fill that out if you have a minute. And again, for those of you who have joined multiple sessions on our series, thank you. We hope you learned a lot, and we hope to see you all again next year. Thank you, ladies.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.